Severance's main title theme is perhaps one of the greatest main titles ever written for a show. Anybody that has watched the show will tell you that it fits so insanely well.
I make these statements freely.
The first time I heard it, I thought that it was simpler than it actually ended up being. And once I figured out how it actually was written, it kind of made the whole thing even more perfect.
Nothing is what they say.
Now, in this video, you're safe, no spoilers ahead. I won't be revealing anything that you can't get from the trailer itself. This is so interesting. Visually, it's just... Okay. We gotta stop. It's very difficult to stop because of the incredible animation done here, which was done by a super talented artist, Oliver Lotta, and actually won an Emmy for best, I think it was best main title sequence? Outstanding main title design. And I mean, we're only halfway through, but yikes, this is just so fascinating to look at. But it's also fascinating to listen to. Now, the first time I heard this, I thought that I had immediately identified what it was. That's what I expected it to be, but of course, the second I played this chord, I was like, that's not right. And then the rest of it was maybe not quite as clear, but here, what I was referring to in my own mind is something that any jazz musician is likely going to be familiar with, and that is, of course, the chords to Green Dolphin Street. Now, had it been that simple, it would have been super easy to explain. It's like, okay, there's a root that stays, there's a pedal tone. We've talked about pedal tones before on this channel, but in case you're new, pedal tone is very simply when we keep a root note going no matter what happens to the harmony above. It's just keeping a note underneath, and we can change chords and do all kinds of stuff. And it just gives us that same root note that we continue to use through a section of a piece. Now, in the case of Green Dolphin Street, it's just a C chord, an E flat chord, a D chord, a D flat chord, back to the C chord. So it goes up a minor third, and then it climbs down chromatically back to the home bass. Very simple. And when I first heard this, at first glance, I kind of sounded similar to that. I was like, well, maybe that's what it is. I mean, the top note is certainly doing that. It's following the exact same thing, but it's in the other notes that everything changes. And that's where I think it just becomes even more perfect for this show, right? Let's take a look at what it actually is. Let's just talk about those chords first, because that is going to be the basis for this whole thing. We start on C minor, but we do not go to E flat major. Instead, we get G flat major. Now, this is really important because by taking a G flat major chord, and of course we're using it in second inversion, here's root position, here's first inversion, here's second inversion, over a C. Now, what does that create? We have a C as our pedal tone, as our root, but we're building a chord off of G flat. That is a tritone. Now, a tritone is very commonly thought of as one of the most dissonant intervals that you can play. So when we play a note in the bass like C and play a G flat major chord over it, we're getting that really interesting rub. Now, because we've turned this into a triad, we have even more components of this chord that create rub. Not only do we have the tritone in here, but the fifth of this G flat chord is D flat. That is super dissonant. So we have dissonance there, we have dissonance there, and then the only other note is B flat, right? And that creates a dominant seventh or a minor seventh interval. So we have all these dissonant intervals in building a G flat major triad and putting it over a C. That's our first indication that something is horribly wrong here. Seems like a pretty good fit for the show. Now we drop it a half step down to an F major chord. Now this one is much more consonant. Almost like we're coming back to the part that makes sense, okay? Well, and then what do we get before we finally wrap this thing up? Do we get a D flat major chord like I originally thought? No, it is a... Check that out. This is A flat minor over C. Notice what we're doing here. This is a minor chord, but it's pretty consonant. I wouldn't call this particularly dissonant. It's just dark in the way that minor chords tend to be, right? But then, massive amount of dissonance. But we let that dissonance go by dropping it down to simply F major, which is, we can put that over a C just fine because it's just the fifth of the chord, right? So if we put that in the bass, no problem, right? But then, once we drop it down to this A flat minor chord, oh boy, now we've got some serious dissonance going on again, and it's in a totally different way than the G flat major chord. The A flat minor chord creates, it's a major seventh, right, with our root. That's dissonant in and of itself, and up here it creates a minor second interval, super dissonant, okay? Then we get that, which is a minor third of our root, okay? So we already have this, that's weird. But then to compound upon that, we add the A flat. I wouldn't call this the most dissonant interval ever, but when we combine it with all of the other stuff going on, this is almost like playing A flat and A flat major together. Because we have the major third of A flat, which is C, we are using as our root note, but then the minor third of A flat, which is B, is creating our minor triad. We're playing them both together. It's almost like playing a minor and a major chord at the same time. So what we have here is consonance, dissonance, consonance, dissonance. We're just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And do you see why this is already incredibly written for this show? I mean, it just makes so much sense. And those are just, oh, I screwed it up. Sorry, it's not E, it's A flat minor. Let's listen again. Now, let's talk about that melody. Or I don't even know if you necessarily call it a melody. It's just kind of an interjection. Very simple. B, B flat, G, B flat, G. But when we put that against everything that we're playing, we can see how it is even weirder. It creates even more dissonance. If we're purely just looking at this as C minor, then we have a major seventh to a minor seventh, fifth, minor seventh, fifth, right? It's a very, very mysterious sound. It certainly adds dissonance, but it's just more like what's going on than anything else. I mean, people who know this show are, I'm sure, write your comments below. I mean, be careful with spoilers because some people have yet to watch it. But like, people who know the show are going, yes, it's because this and this and this and this. And the more you know it, the more you see all these connections and why this is so incredibly written and why you just get the feeling you're supposed to get for the show just by watching the title sequence. Let's keep going. This animation is just so incredible, so fascinating. All right, that's super cool. Okay. take a look at how that line interacts with the chord changes. We have... right? So we're following the chords. We're playing notes that work with them. Right? It all works. It all fits right in to the harmony. And it adds some motion. It's super cool. And we're watching this insane title sequence going, what is going on? Wow. And now we just develop the whole thing. Wow, that is so cool. We develop the whole thing by just adding more layers. Now we have strings. Which one was that? Oh, yeah. So that was still an A flat minor chord. It's just voiced differently in the strings, but because of that, our piano line starts in before going into the... Oh, that is so cool. The glitch at the end to tell you that, yeah, everything's wrong here. Everything is screwed up. And you're not sure what that means, but you can feel what that means. And that's where this theme is just so spot on. This theme, by the way, was written by Theodore Shapiro, who did an incredible job at painting the perfect picture. I don't know if the music came first and then Oliver Latta did these animations, but like, regardless, the way that the two things work together is just wild. And the way that it just kind of makes you go, I have no idea what I'm supposed to expect here, but I feel very uneasy and like there's a lot of push-pull going on and a lot of things that seem wrong. They feel wrong. There's a lot of dissonance here. And the move back and forth in the harmony from dissonance to consonance to dissonance to it's just fascinating how perfectly it just pulls your emotions together from the main title sequence. This puts you right in the mood that you're supposed to be in as the show begins. Think about watching this for the first time. You get to the end of that title sequence and you're just like, what? Highly recommend if you haven't checked it out. Definitely do so. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that theme because I think it's incredibly unique and obviously incredibly well written. And boy, is it one of the most perfect fit themes I think I've ever heard for a show. But I want to know your comments down below, so let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And we will see you in the next one.